Haha! Which is the best time of the day to eat breakfast? Which is the best time of the day to eat food, any food? What's the best time of the day to exercise? And is there if I eat at this time, I'll get a better result, and if I exercise at this time, I'll get a better result? And if your clients ask you that question, how do we answer the question? If you're asking yourself that question, when should I eat my breakfast? When should I eat my lunch? When should I eat my dinner? What's the best time for me to be eating? And when should I exercise? It could be a very controversial answer, and should we as exercise professionals find out a fair bit more information about somebody before we start suggesting when people should eat food and when they should exercise. So we'll cover off the food part first, because everybody eats food. And when people eat food now has become a really controversial, argued conversation. So let's say breakfast. If I say the statement, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, there's a lot of people who would agree with that. And in fact, if I say breakfast is the most, they would then complete that sentence with the most important meal of the day. And they would agree that you need to start your metabolism, you need to put nutrition into your body at the start of the day because that's when you need it. That's at this end of the scale. At the absolute opposite end of the scale are people who hate to eat breakfast. They're doing some kind of intermittent fasting, so they're not eating until 4, 5, 6, 7 in the afternoon, in the evening. They like to leave anywhere between 12 to 24 hours between each meal. And that's completely different to breakfast is the most important meal of the day. The reverse of that, there are some intermittent fasters who eat breakfast, love it, and then they don't eat again until breakfast the next day. So when's the best time for you to eat breakfast? When's the best time for your clients to eat breakfast? Or let's not call it breakfast. Let's just say, what are the times of the day that you love to eat food? And could that be a really important question to ask? And if I get an answer, should I ask why? Because somebody might, I eat 3 meals a day because I've been doing that since I was a baby. My mother always gave me 3 meals a day. Or it might be I need to eat 3 times a day because I don't have energy if I don't eat 3 times a day. Or I might eat 5, 7, 10 times a day because I graze throughout the day, so I've got constant energy levels. Versus somebody who says, I don't feel good when I eat food. I feel full, I feel overloaded, I feel bloated. I don't want to eat on a regular basis. I want my body to have a rest between meals. And the reason that I only eat 1 time a day is because I think that's the best for my body. So should we ask the question before we give information? If somebody says to you, when should I eat and when should I exercise? Obviously, as humans, as exercise professionals, we want to give information. And as I always share, there's 2 reasons for that. One, of course, is that we've been taught since we were little kids that if somebody asks us a question, we need to give them an answer. And the second reason is, isn't it awesome when somebody asks for your opinion, for your advice, for your suggestions? Isn't it good for our ego? We feel good. If somebody trusts us with their eating and their exercise, we of course want to give them all the information possible. But here's my really important question. Is it possible that we don't know enough about this particular person or every person that asks us a question to be able to give them that answer? Now, if somebody says, look, I don't know, I don't care, I just want to do what I will do what you tell me to do, there's still some other questions I think that we need to ask. So if breakfast is the most important meal of the day, should we know why? And I'll give you a couple of things just to consider. If I've got a lifestyle where I eat late at night and I've had a really big meal at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and then I go to sleep, is breakfast the most important meal of the day? Should I then wake up again at 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning and put more food into my body? What's happened to the food that I put in at 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock last night? Have I burnt it up yet? Has it been stored yet? Will it provide me with the energy that I need for the day? And I always ask these 4 questions, and I ask these of everybody, and I'm just asking you to consider them for yourself and then for your clients. If I choose to eat at a certain time and if I choose to exercise at a certain time, should I be able to demand 4 things? Number 1 is energy. Should my eating and exercise plan, whatever it is and however much I do and whenever I do it, should it give me a stack of energy? So whenever I eat food, is the goal for me to be able to have the energy that I need to go and do the things that I want to do? The second part of that, though, is perform. So it's not just have the energy to do it, but would you like to perform at your 100%? 100% best effort when you do something. And when it comes to food, for example, there are people who will share that when they eat food, the last thing they want to do is go and exercise, or the last thing they want to do is go and do work. They just want to have a little nap. So energy and performance can be very important questions when it comes to not just what we eat and how much we eat, but when we eat. The next question I always ask is, do you love what you see in the mirror, whether it's naked or in your clothes or whatever you want to see in your mirror? Are you seeing that? Do you love how your body looks and feels? And as I always share, the example is when you're soaping yourself in the shower, do you love the way your body feels when you touch it? Or does it have too many squidgy bits? Or would you like to put on more muscle size? Or would you like to have bigger muscles or smaller muscles or less squidgy bits or a softer skin? Or there's a whole heap of things that when we touch our body, we might want it to look different and to feel different. And then the last one is, are you getting the results that you want from your eating and exercise plan? So if somebody tells you that you should eat breakfast, or you have to eat 3 meals a day, or you have to eat graze throughout the day 7, 8, 10 times throughout the day, or you should intermittent fast, so you should just eat breakfast and then don't eat again until breakfast the next day, or you should just eat 4 o'clock in the afternoon and then don't eat till 4 o'clock the next afternoon. If that's what somebody's telling you to do, or if that's the information that's being preached at you, should that be giving you the results that you want? And I always ask, this is a bit cheeky, this question, but if somebody's telling you what to eat, how much to eat, and when to eat, should they be able to answer yes to those 4 questions? So if you were to say to them, do you have a stack of energy? Are you performing at your best? Do you love what you see in the mirror and how your body feels in the shower? And are you getting the results that you want from your eating and exercise plan? And I'll just use the word integrity. If somebody's preaching at you, should their lifestyle have the integrity of being living proof that what they're doing is working for them? And probably a very personal and confrontational question for each of us as exercise professionals. If I'm telling people to do a certain thing, am I living that example myself? So if somebody looked into my life, would they see somebody who's got a stack of energy? I'm performing at my best. I love what I see in the mirror and I'm getting the results that I want from my eating and exercise plan. So that conversation is very, very interesting. Now, if I can say yes to all of those, whatever I'm doing, should I just, well, congratulations, it's obviously working for you. Most people don't have any of those working for them, only some of them, and you've got all of those working for you. So congratulations, whatever you're doing is working for you. Do we need to go there when it comes to food, or when we're asked information about food? If the answer is no, and somebody says, no, I don't have a stack of energy, and no, I'm not performing at my best, and no, I don't love what I see in the mirror, and no, I'm not getting the results that I want from my eating and exercise plan, where do we go from there? And that's always the question again. Tell me about your lifestyle. When do you like to eat food? And we'll go back a step from there, which is, what foods do you really love to eat? What foods don't you like to eat? Why do you eat? And I know that sounds like a really silly question, because a lot of people will just say, I eat because I'm hungry. But is it possible that people eat for other reasons than being hungry? They eat when they're angry, they eat when they're frustrated, they eat when they're in a bad mood, they eat when they need comfort, they eat when they're emotional, or they eat more when they're in a social group, or when they're at a party, or they love eating out and they get a big buzz from eating food with other people, and they love the process of producing great food. So the reasons why people eat is often, we think we know the answer, but maybe we need to dig a little bit deeper. Obviously, where people eat is really important. Some people just love to have a family meal. Some people like to eat by themselves. Some people like to eat in the kitchen standing up. Other people like to sit at a table with a knife and a fork and a wine glass, and it's a really wow experience. So should we find out where people eat? Just as a quick side note for that, if people are eating socially and they're eating at a cafe or at a restaurant, there's some really interesting research to show that we tend to eat more then. So if everybody's having entree, everybody's having main meal, everybody's having dessert, everybody has bread, everybody has wine, it seems that across the board we tend to eat more when we're eating socially. Also, there's another really interesting piece of research that talks about the hand-eye gap. So if you're at a party or in a social environment and there's a bowl of chips or a bowl of nuts, oh look, a bowl of nuts, lollies, finger food, and you're talking to somebody and having a great time, you might be doing this while you're talking, not realizing that you're doing that. So we go, oh, what did you eat? And you go, oh, I just had a few nibblies at the party. But we didn't, because we weren't thinking about it, that hand-eye gap, I didn't realize how much was going from my hand to my mouth. then we seem to we overestimate or underestimate what we're eating. So that question, where do you like to eat, could be very helpful when it comes to helping people with their food. And then, of course, when do you like to eat? And should that be the question? Not this is when you should eat, but when do you like to eat food? When's the first time of the day, or what's the first time in the day that you like to eat food? And I ask that question because we often say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But if you were to ask the question, when do you like to start eating food, you might find that there's people who don't like to eat until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or they don't eat at all during the day because they want to have a lovely meal with their family at 6 o'clock at night. So they might have a couple of glasses of juice during the day, or some handful of nuts, or a small bowl of cereal. They really don't eat that much during the day because they want to have their major meal at night time. So if you start telling people you shouldn't be eating after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, is it possible that you're going to take away the thing in their life that is the most important to them? And I'm asking that very passionately because should food, or is food for some people, is it an experience, a wow experience, a pleasurable experience, something that adds massive value to their life? And if we start taking away the things in people's lives that they really enjoy, is it possible that, number one, there'll be a bounce back effect? So at some stage later on, they'll go, well, I bugger that, I hated that, and then go the extreme opposite. Or they just get cranky. They have not a happy headspace because they really want to be eating breakfast, for example. And I use breakfast because for some people, breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. It's their most favourite meal of the day. They love to have bacon and eggs and waffles and a bowl of cereal and baked beans on toast and a nice glass of juice and a coffee. And breakfast is just their most favourite meal. So if you come along and say you should be an intermittent faster and you shouldn't be eating till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they might believe you and trust that you know what's best for them. But every morning they're waking up thinking, oh, I miss my eggs, I miss my bacon, I miss my cereal, I miss my baked beans on toast, I wish I could have my breakfast. And then we have this challenge with mental health headspace. And as I always share, as an exercise professional, I've been wanting people to have a healthy relationship with food, and that very first started when a young lady walked into one of my health clubs. She was 29 kilos and 29 years of age. I'm just going to let that sit for a minute. She was my first experience. I was very young, very naive, very inexperienced. I think I was 18 or 19 years of age. Managing a health club with lots of responsibility, and then this responsibility walked into my health club. And this young woman taught me a lot about life, a lot about eating, a lot about food, a lot about eating challenges. And as I always share, when you have a medical challenge that walks into your life as an exercise professional, should you have a good referral? And that one of the questions I, of course, asked my client, and she wasn't my client yet, by the way, and she had asked if she could join my health club, and I'll just go through that conversation. She'd said to me, I really want to exercise at the gym. I've got a swimming pool at home, I've got home exercise equipment, I've got a boxing bag, but I really want to exercise in a group. Please, can I join your health club? I've been thrown out of other health clubs. They've cancelled my membership because of the way I look. And 29 kilos for a 29-year young woman is a pretty scary sight. So I asked her if she had medical people in her circle of influence that she trusted. Do you have a psychologist or a psychiatrist? And she was in a very interesting headspace, because I've since learnt, after I met her, is that there's a lot of people who are that thin, who when they look in the mirror, they still see overweight or obese or ugly. But Di was different. She knew that she had eating challenges. She knew that she was only 29 kilos, and she knew that her headspace was wrong. But she really wanted to exercise. So she said, yes, I have one medical professional in my life who I trust. Could you please give them a call? And of course I did. And I've learnt so much from that experience, and I just want to share it with you. The doctor said to me that, and I get emotional when I share this story because it's one of the experiences in my life that taught me so much, but I became very good friends with this young lady. The doctor shared with me that she would probably die this winter. My health club was in Sydney at the time, and not that it gets that cold there, but in winter it can get cold. And he said she is so underweight and she has so little body fat, and her body is so broken down that she will probably die this winter. Are you prepared to take on that kind of responsibility? She could die on your gym floor. She could die in a group exercise class. So that's the downside. The upside, he said to me, was if you let her exercise in your health club, you'll be giving her some pleasure in her life. She really loves music. She loves to dance. She loves group exercise classes. And this was the 80s when music and group exercise and fluorescent clothing, and it was all huge. We were having group exercise classes of 100, 150 people. It was just this amazing time in history for group exercise classes. So I took on the responsibility, and since then, because she became so close to me and we had such a lovely relationship, that obviously affected my life, and I wanted to help other people. And how do I explain this? I don't want that to happen to people. There comes a time when food is controlling your life, and I'm not sure that can be sorted. But if I can help people before they get to that, and I'm using the emotional eating scale. So if I'm at this end of the emotional eating scale at 0, I have no emotional attachment to food. I eat when I'm hungry. I stop eating when I'm full. That's the person that would never say to you, when should I eat food? Because they just eat when they're hungry. And if they wake up in the morning and they're not hungry, they don't eat food. 10, 11, 12 during the day. I haven't eaten for a while. I better have some food. That headspace is completely different to waking up in the morning and going, okay, what food do I need to do today? And how many calories am I going to eat today? And what's my percentage of macronutrients? And how much food can I eat so that I don't have to do too much exercise? Or if I eat that, how much exercise do I have to do? Where that war is going on inside somebody's head, where food is controlling their life. That's the 10 in the emotional eating scale, where food is controlling my life. I am totally emotionally connected to food. I don't want to put people up there, because my entire career after that was dedicated to making sure that people, if they are there to make their life a little bit better, can you imagine what that's like, where food is controlling your life? You don't really enjoy anything that you eat because you're scared it's going to make you fat, or you're scared that you're going to eat too many calories, or you're scared that when you look in the mirror next or stand on the scales that your body will have changed. This is not a headspace that I want for anybody, which is why when somebody comes to me and says, what should I eat? How much should I eat? When should I eat? And then how much exercise should I do? And when should I exercise? And what exercises should I do? I'm really careful with those answers, because is it possible that we can push people down the emotional eating and exercise scale where food is controlling their life or exercise is controlling their life? I don't want to do that to anybody. So I'm asking you very personally, before you give information to anybody about when to eat and how much to eat and what people should eat, let's find out a little bit more about them. Which is, if you go through those questions, what do you like to eat? What don't you like to eat? Why? What do you eat at the moment, and why are you eating that way? Where do you like to eat? When do you like to eat? What's the best time of the day for you? And then those really interesting questions: how do you feel when you eat? And how do you feel if you don't eat? And they're very powerful questions, and they give you a lot of information about where somebody's headspace is at. So you might think, yes, why do you eat? I eat because I'm hungry. Well, some people eat because they have to. They don't want to, but if I don't eat, I understand I have to eat something. How do you feel if you don't eat? A lot of people will say, well, I'm hungry. Well, there are some people who will tell you that they feel disciplined and powerful and happy about their life and proud of themselves because they haven't eaten for a really long time. And would it be good to know that before we tell people when and what to eat? So if I cover off the whole food conversation, could we all please, as exercise professionals, as parents, as teachers, as coaches, could we treat each person that's in front of us as a unique individual and find out all of those things about them before we start delivering information about food? But why would we deliver information? So why not ask the question, when do you love to eat food? When does it suit you? And if I tell somebody you have to eat breakfast but they don't like it, why would I put somebody through the process of eating food? Oh, I'm not hungry, I don't feel like eating, why do I need to eat food? And you might have a really strong opinion about that breakfast is the most important meal of the day and you should be eating breakfast because it starts your metabolism and all of those common pieces of information that are delivered about breakfast. But the reverse of that is there's now intermittent fasting folks who absolutely swear that when you wake up in the morning, don't eat anything for as long as possible. So aim not to start eating till 12, 1, 2, and even longer. And there are some people, and I'll give you the extremes on this, and this is what I do. I talk to people every single day about food and exercise, and I'm sure that you do too, because food's a very hot topic. But I've got people who've shared with me very passionately that they eat one day, not the next day. So if you ask the question, when do you like to eat food? They say, well, I eat one day and I miss the next day. There are some people who are this extreme where they eat for 7 days and then they have 7 days off. There are some extremists who believe that if you give your body a really big rest from eating food that you'll get rid of diseases. There's this interesting word called autophagy, where if you give your body a rest, your body will eat up all the grotty things that are inside your body. It's an interesting concept and maybe something to consider when if somebody shares with you, I don't eat for 7 days or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And that's some of the extremes now. What a great question to ask. Wow, tell me about that. You must be incredibly disciplined to not eat for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. How come you do that? And if somebody says to you, well, I want my body to go through the autophagy process, it might be a really good idea to understand that. And just as a simple, basic understanding of that, it just simply means that if your body's not going through the process of digesting food and processing food and storing food and burning food up, that it has more energy to look after the inside of your body. So there's a lot of people that believe that if you don't eat food for a very long time, your body doesn't waste energy on digestion and storage of food, and it starts to burn up the stuff in your body that it doesn't need. So it starts getting rid of the junk, the grot, the yucky stuff inside your body. It's an interesting form of detoxing your body. Now, I have no right or wrong there. It's not up to me to tell somebody whether that's right or wrong. I just ask those 4 questions. Do you have a stack of energy? Do you perform at your best? Do you love what you see in the mirror? And are you getting the results that you want? And if the answer is yes, and somebody's only eating once every 7 days, or they're eating 7 days and not eating for another 7 days, or they eat at 7 o'clock in the morning and they don't eat again till 7 o'clock the next morning, what right do I have to tell them that what they're doing is wrong? I might disagree with it. I might think that there's some scientific studies to show that that's not the best way to eat. But would it be respectful to treat everybody as a unique individual? So, when do you like to eat food? What fits into your lifestyle? And the really important questions there, of course, is why do you eat and why don't you eat? And it'll give you a really good idea where somebody is on that emotional scale. And I love hearing this. Oh, I bloody eat when I'm hungry and I stop eating when I'm full. I eat what I bloody well want to. And if I get a little bit chubby, I eat less and move more. And that's just how I live my life. And I use that as an example because that's one of my special wishes for the world. I would love people to live at that end of the emotional eating scale, only because I've worked so much with people up at this end where food's controlling their life. And when you meet somebody who has that attitude, I eat when I'm hungry, I stop eating when I'm full. If I'm a bit chubby, I eat less and move more. And there's no emotional attachment to the whole process of eating and exercise. And that's probably my very personal wish for our kids. I'd love our kids to grow up in a world like that where they eat when they're hungry, they stop eating when they're full. They enjoy their food, they don't count calories, they don't go on a diet, they never have to lose weight because they never got chubby in the first place. They're the things that are really exciting for me and of course my driving force for waking up every day. Now I'm not expecting you to have the same driving force and you've probably got lots of food. Everybody's got an opinion about food because everybody eats food. So all my request is if somebody says to you, when should I eat? What's the best times of the day for me to eat? Let's find out a little bit more about that person with that beautiful set of questions before we start delivering information. And do we really need to deliver information? There's probably that last question at the end of that series, which is, do you have anybody in your life who's currently giving you advice about food? Do you have a nutritionist or a naturopath or your footy coach or your mum or somebody in your life who you trust about food? And if somebody doesn't want help with their food, could it be a good idea to just leave it alone? If you are an exercise professional and you can help people with their exercise, oh, we've got an escaped nut out of my nut bowl. If you are an exercise professional and that's what we specialise in, wouldn't it be great to stick with our area of specialisation and just keep asking those 4 questions? So if you see somebody once a week or twice a week or 3 times a week and you just keep asking every so often, so you shared with me that you're on the intermittent fasting diet. How's that going for you? Do you still have a stack of energy? Are you still performing at your best? Do you love what you see in the mirror? Are you getting the results that you want? And the person says yes, leave it alone. If they're on an eating plan that isn't working for them, it won't take long for them to go, oh, bloody hell, I've been trying to stick to that diet that the person gave me and it's not working for me. No, I don't have a stack of energy. Actually, I'm really tired all the time. No, I'm not performing at my best because I've got brain fog. No, I haven't lost any weight, or I lost weight in the first place and then I put it all back on again. Could you please help me? And now you've got a different situation because you've got somebody that actually wants your help. So that covers off the food. What about exercise? What's the best time of the day to exercise? And there's another really interesting question because people argue about it all the time. But I always ask this question, when do you want to feel good? And is it possible that there are some people that love to exercise in the morning and there are some people that love to exercise at lunchtime and some people that love to exercise in the afternoon or evening? So that's the love people. So the people that love to exercise will probably have a very strong opinion about why they love to exercise in the morning, lunchtime or in the evening. Is it possible that people exercise at a certain time because it fits in with their lifestyle? So they might be too busy in the morning, they go to the gym, or they exercise at lunchtime because it's the only time they've got, or they're too busy throughout the day so they only can exercise in the evening, so that's why they've chosen to do that. And should we find that out before we start telling people when they should exercise? My question though is always, how often do you want to feel good? And is it possible, that when you get puffed, when you overload all the systems in your body by forcing it to move hard, so you do high intense activity. And of course our heart and lungs, our muscles and bones, our endocrine system, our central nervous system has no clue whatsoever what we're doing. But if we overload those systems, we not only have a body that gets fitter and stronger mentally and physically, but of course we have those happy chemicals, those neurotransmitters, the movement drugs when you exercise intensely, epinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol, they're the movement hormones, the movement neurotransmitters that get us moving. We then produce endorphins, which is the painkiller for intense movement. And then after I've done intense activity, I obviously have reward drug dopamine, satisfaction drug serotonin, and I have brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is fertilizer for my brain. So all of that happens when I do intense activity. And of course, how long can I do intense activity for? Interestingly, there's no argument about this, that the intense system, the intense energy system for the body is the phosphate system. So as you know, there's the phosphate energy system, the lactate energy system, and the aerobic energy system. The phosphate system is only 10 seconds. Lactate is 11 seconds to about 2 minutes. Brody's agreeing, is my puppy dog. And then your aerobic system, which is where you're using carbohydrate, a combination of carbohydrate and fat, you can keep going for a really long time because obviously we have a larger amounts of fat in our body. And if you've got low percentage of body fat and you're working aerobically, then it's obviously probably a pretty good idea to eat while you're exercising. That brings in marathon running and ultra marathons and Ironman events where they go for such a long time that you need to put some food in. But the interesting thing is that you can't exercise hard and fast. You can't sprint for 42.2 kilometers. You can't sprint for an Ironman event. The sprint system is that 10-second system. And I get really excited about that because in 10 seconds, it's the 100% effort system. At the Olympic Games, I always share, it's the 100-meter sprint. Everything after that is a pace race. Because if I go for 100 meters, it's around about 10 seconds. And I know they're going a tiny little bit quicker than that now, hundreds of seconds quicker. But in my phosphate system is my power system. It's my 100% effort system. And that's the one that produces those neurotransmitters, because phosphate system is the get the hell out of there because there's a wild animal chasing me, or let's turn and kill the animal because it's trying to kill me. Yes, Broody. He's so gorgeous. So that 10-second system, I can't exercise at 100% effort for more than 10 seconds. So I'm not sharing with you how long you should exercise for and how often you should exercise, because that's the thing that you're going to fit into your own lifestyle. And I hope that you fit that into your client's lifestyle. But what I've learnt, for me, probably the most exciting thing I've learned in my entire career of 40 plus years, is that to get the best results from my exercise program, should I put in 100% or 50% effort? So somebody who used to run marathons and half marathons and teach 45-minute group exercise classes, it's really exciting for me because my exercise program now is just sprint, get my breath back, sprint, get my breath back. And because I'm sprinting, I pump those happy drugs into my brain, so I'm constantly happy. I'm always full of dopamine, serotonin, brain-derived neurotropic factor, and endorphins because I'm getting puffed. For me, it's 4 puffs an hour. So every 15 minutes, and I used to have a little mechanism on my, or like an alert on my watch or my phone. I don't need that anymore because I now know around about every 15 minutes that I want to go and get sprinting. So before I come and have a chat with you, I always do a really hard sprint so that my brain is alert. And then as soon as I finish, I go and do a really hard sprint so my brain is alert, which means, Rowie, how often do you exercise? Multiple times throughout the day. In every day of my life now, I get really puffed multiple times throughout the day, and puffed to the point where I can't breathe because that's 100% effort. And there's lots of ways to do that, of course, and your heart and lungs don't know how you're doing that. But for me, the best thing that I've ever invested money in was my cross trainer, because whether I'm wearing my pajamas and slippers or whether I'm wearing exercise clothing, or I can do it in high heel shoes, or I can do it in business clothes, but it's every 15 minutes, 10 seconds as hard as I can on the cross trainer. There's no pressure put through my body, there's no pounding on my body, but my heart rate goes up and my brain pumps full of beautiful chemicals that make me feel good all day long. So when people say, Rowie, how do you feel good all the time? It's pretty easy. I've got happy drugs in my brain all the time. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to do that, of course. But when people say to me, how often should I exercise? I always ask that question. How often do you want to feel good? Because that for me is the ultimate outcome of exercise. It makes you feel fantastic. And if you feel energetic and if you feel powerful and if you feel happy, is it possible that all the other decisions that you have to make in your life become a little bit easier? Your brain's thinking clearly, you become more creative, you can overcome challenges better because your brain is in better condition to do it. So for me, it's constantly throughout the day. If people choose to exercise, for example, 3 times a week, I always ask, well, on those days in between, do you want to still have those happy chemicals pumping into your brain? And again, everybody has a different reason for exercising, so should we find out what that reason is? So some people might be just generally happy all the time and they don't need to be pumping happy chemicals because they love their life and they just are happy people. So they just want to get the benefit of exercise. So how often should I exercise? And there's a lot of, you can imagine there's a lot of research being done on this, and the American College of Sports Medicine and all of the top exercising universities in the world are studying this, like what's the ultimate number of minutes or how long should we exercise for to get the very best result. There's not too much argument around the world that moderate intense exercise, so stuff that you're in the aerobic system, you can keep going for quite a while, about 150 minutes a week. For some people, that's too short because they love exercise and they want to keep going and they want to do it for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 or 5 times a week. There's other people where 150 minutes seems like a really long time, and there's some great use for that, of course, because that's moderate intensity exercise. As soon as you start going into high intense activity, go broody. Every time you go into high intense activity where you're putting in that 100% effort, the number of minutes comes down. So if you want the benefits of exercise for being lean, for being healthy, for having healthy heart and lungs, for having strong muscles and bones, for having an endocrine system and central nervous system that works, every time you do intense activity, that 150 minutes a week becomes less and less. So let's go back to those 4 questions. When should I eat? When should I exercise? How much energy do you want? How well do you want to perform? What do you want to look like? And what results do you want to get from your eating and exercise plan? And then let's work out what's going to be best for the person that's in front of us. Not what's best for us, not what the scientists say, not what we've read in a magazine, not what the social media experts are telling us, but what do we need to do for ourselves? What do we need to do for our clients to make sure that they can say yes to those 4 questions? And for some people, it might be eat breakfast and not eat again till the next breakfast. For some people, it's eat breakfast, eat morning tea, eat lunch, eat afternoon tea, eat dinner, and then have supper. We need to work that out individually with each unique individual person that sits in front of us. Could that be a great idea? So when somebody says to you, when should I eat? And when should I exercise? Let's get to know them really well. Let's get to know what their lifestyle is. Let's get to know what their likes and dislikes are. Let's get to know what their goals are. And let's get to know them as a person so we can help them individually to achieve their goals. Could that be a good idea?